709 Reasons Why is brought to you by Calman.
Hi everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of 709 Reasons Why with Portrait Displays. Today I'm very proud and happy that we have a new special guest joining us today, talking about, well, he brought the big guns, as you can already see. From Las Vegas, Nevada is Angel Bank.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm very excited to be here.
How was your drive?
It was good. I love the drive. I love California. So.
Excellent. So Angel is one of the go-to guys when it comes to audiovisual installations, live shows, broadcasts, corporate events, everything.
Mm-hmm.
What we see here is a lot of different things that are allowing to show very, very big pictures on the venue, but also then combining it with broadcast stuff.
Exactly. Right? So yeah, we kind of straddle both industries. We do live keynote events. Mm-hmm. Also, we do broadcasts, and a lot of times those are merged together when you're having very large product releases by large tech companies out in Silicon Valley. So it's one of the reasons we're out here, and all this technology is tied into what we're doing now. So
and you're using Calman too.
Exactly. I'm actually consulting with some of my clients to doing the color workflow that we'll be talking about, and Calman is the superstar in that whole workflow.
Awesome. So how did you get into this 3D LUT thing that you were starting to say, yeah, we can either perceptually match stuff, mm-hmm. or we match it based on whatever the standards will be?
Exactly. So I talk about color also in sound, because I was in sound originally, and I like to tell people, relating to sound, a LUT is like a parametric EQ where I can actually move the Q, move the amplitude, and move the frequency of it. The 3D LUT does the same thing for me. Most of our devices that we have that as just correcting red, green, blue, contrast, brightness, and gamma, that's more of a 1D LUT. But a lot of devices don't have that ability to take that color gamut, mm-hmm. and put it in the right gamut so that we have the right colors showing. And so 3D LUTs is where I started to relate to all these devices that have 3D LUTs, and we started to ask the industry to start putting that in there. And guess what? Calman is the key to generating those LUTs.
Awesome, mm-hmm. Awesome. Speaking of generating the LUTs, so how you define your reference? Is that always depending on what the overall event is? Is it like, it could be either the reference is the wall in the back where mm-hmm. people show their content?
Sure.
Or is it maybe a broadcasted show that is going to go live nationwide, and sure. then you still have the LED wall as well, and somehow that needs to be matched so the right. audience sees also pretty much the same thing? So how do you what's the decision-making process before you really define what hardware you use?
Sure. So the hardware, a lot of the times we kind of walk into it the size of the wall. Right, and then if it's going to be broadcast, so that's when we straddle in both those worlds, broadcast and then live events, and then we're gonna talk about what color space we're in. Right now, about 95% of the shows are still in Rec 709.
95%.
95% of the shows right now are, and we're working towards that. We're working towards moving that marker into a different direction. But right now, sRGB 709, and we're moving into color spaces like P3. But right now, everything that's edited pretty much is Rec 709 and sRGB, but we want to make sure that the cameras can see the screens correctly, so that's what we're calibrating to that. Let me say this. I always tell people, to me, calibrating a display is almost like tuning a guitar. If you strum a guitar and it's out of tune, immediately you'll know. You strum and you go, oh, it sounds bad. When I walked up to the screen and I see our Calman family, and we'll talk about that later. Right. I can immediately see in all the patterns, mm-hmm. If the screen's out of calibration or out of tune, and I always teach that in class that's what needs to happen. But anyway, so to answer your question, we talk to the content teams, we talk to the broadcast teams, and see what color space they're going to be in, and that's how we go about coloring the show.
So that would be a live venue, for example. But
mm-hmm.
then you also work, for example, with the motion picture industry.
Yes.
So the volumes,
mm-hmm.
the big LED walls for a virtual production.
Sure.
And you mentioned what the camera sees.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically get a third component in
yes.
here, right?
Yep.
So it's basically the stage light or scene light.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the camera is seeing based on the camera gamut,
mm-hmm.
and how it reacts, right?
Exactly.
And it's the displays that are somehow in the environment of the virtual production.
Right.
And maybe a fourth one would be the video village, right?
Exactly.
So how does that play into this?
Okay, so I always carry a light meter with me, because I think in this business, we're not an island. The LED display is not an island. It takes a team of people to make this whole production work. And so I always I call it my trifecta, my triangle of people we talk to. We talk to the camera engineers. We're going to be coloring things. We talk to the LED displays people, and we also talk to our lighting designers. And I always carry a lighting meter with me so I can do what? I can talk to the lighting designers, because usually they're like, oh, these LED guys, their LED walls are too wide out of gamut. They're not good. And then the camera engineers are always, complaining about how bright our LED walls. So what the methodology that we use is we bring everybody together so that everything plays right. And one last thing is, I always like my displays that are behind the camera to play like a movie poster. You ever walked up to a beautiful movie poster and it's just very pleasing to see? I always want the LED wall to not generate light, but to just be shown on the camera. So that's another thing that we do. And this is something we train in class to get that perfect balance between the cameras, the lighting, and everything else to work together to have a beautiful production.
That sounds awesome. That said, it means that there's also a very important element in the basically pre-production of any project, right? Where you get those people in the room.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just by coincidentally showing up at a job and like, we figured out there's a problem, right?
Right.
So it's like you try to tackle that before you even show up.
I've been at it for 15 years, and finally people are starting to notice in the business that color does matter. We had a CEO actually unasked, he basically talked about how good the color was. And that's thing is like one of the #1 color guys in the world. That's what he said. And I didn't know it was going to happen. And somebody sent me the clip, and it was like, they're noticing, to the point where the color's so good that now people are actually noticing and actually asking for us and asking for the process. And this is all because of Calman.
There's an army of people behind the stage. They're all like the all-stars of their area. For one example, there's a color person that is in charge of working with all the brand people and making sure the screen pops. I got more information about the clarity of the screen, and it's the guy who's like the top in the world around, colors in the screens. For audio, for everything, we have like the best of the best, and boy does it show. So I want to say thanks to August Jackson and everybody that's involved with the production. We honestly couldn't do it. We definitely couldn't do it as well without them. So thank you all.
So why don't we just dive in a little bit?
Sure.
Maybe let's have first a look what you brought. I mean, it's like I'm feeling like a little boy on Christmas morning right now, because these are the tools, these are the big guns.
Yes.
Right? You want to have that cool stuff. So you brought an LED tile.
Yep.
SMDs, right? Maybe just give us a little rundown. What is this tile all about?
You got it.
And how does that work normally in a big wall?
You got it. We'll work our way from the display that's behind the camera all the way to how we put out the content.
Excellent.
So this is a row tile that's driven by Brompton processors. Now, there's 4 major processors in the industry. To me, Brompton is the top of the line, because Brompton has always opted to make sure color is first and foremost. And so that's why it's very important. So basically, every tile has, this particular tile is a BP2 from Row, and there's 128 pixels wide by 128 pixels tall, and then
they're RGB subpixels.
There's subpixels that are called SMDs, and each pixel has an RGB element in there that's actually illuminating. The triplets, exactly.
Right, the triplets,
right. And this display reacts very much like an OLED, right? So LCDs have the LEDs behind them, matrix, so you can't achieve full black. This you can. This
self-emitting,
self-illuminating,
right.
and it's they get super bright. These get about 1,700 nits. And we never use them that bright, because the camera engineers would, they get upset at us when we're
out of it.
Right, exactly. So we usually run them in the 20 to 30% range.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that this processor, the SX40 that I brought, that's driving this system here, Brompton has made it their goal to make sure that HDR and color quality is at the top of their game. So not only does Brompton first of all, this processor is 4K. It'll work in HDR. They have something called Dynacal that's calibrating tiles with a system that we provide called Hydra. And Hydra actually calibrates every little LED in coefficient calibration. So we make sure that the tile is not only calibrated electromechanically, but then we also calibrate it with Calman on the input.
So it's basically for color accuracy, but then also for uniformity.
Uniformity for sure, because LEDs, once they're on for thousands of hours, they'll start drifting, and you can see a little bit of drift in there when you go full white or you go full color. So what we do is with the Hydra, that basically levels out the uniformity. And this is something I want to talk about Brompton. Brompton is always looking towards not only the future, but they're also worried about making sure that there's backwards compatibility. So the Hydra system, you can take a tile that's a little bit older and recalibrate it to where now it's playing in the field. And actually, with the Hydra, it actually adds more features than came out with the tile originally. So these guys are the top of the line. They're tech support. We've got Webster, Nat, and we got Adam, and we got Sean Sheridan out there. And thank you guys for always making sure that this product is always at the top of the line. So I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's great.
Interest some of the guys there. Yep.
And I
ladies.
think that's no coincidence that that companies like, I mean, we can probably mention at least ILM, Lucasfilm, and other guys are basically using that stuff because it's exactly top of the line.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing basically compared to it.
Right. And so we were talking about in some of these large volumes, they've started to use tiles to actually light the volume. But with Calman, you can see that a lot of these tiles, and this is not a bad thing. When I tell people this, their SPD or the spectral power distribution is very narrow, right? So sometimes we need to fill that light out, and that's why I always have my color meter too, so I can also show DPs, CRI, or TM30, which is those are lighting standards to show you how much light and the quality of light. And so what we'll do is we'll pair the LEDs with wider gamut lights, right? So that's another reason to have our meters, Calman in there so we can show everything. And then on top of that, we have also, we talk directly to the DPs, and they're also generating LUTs for example, if we don't have this analog way device in a scene set and they're outputting Unreal Engine, for example, directly into the Bronton processor. The reason one of the reasons I use Bronton is because it has a 3D LUT slut in there, right? And so you can always put the 3D LUT right in there, and then you can also calibrate and do all these other color balance routines that you can't with other LED products. And I wanted to talk about the analog way. In cases where you don't have the power and the color capability of the Brompton, you have, say, another LED processor that doesn't have color handles. One of the reasons we've chosen the analog way RS4 or RS6 platform is because they're very serious about color. And so they've added 2 LUT channels, 2 3D LUT slots in each input and each output, and even the multi-viewer. What that does for us is, if I get to a show and I have, like you were talking about, LED technology, sometimes we'll do projection on the side, and then we'll have DSMs. DSMs are downstage monitors where the CEOs look at the information that's being fed in the back. I can take the Calman 3D LUT generator, I can build the LUTs, and I can drop it into this box. And now I don't even have to touch the processors or the TVs. Everything's being done in this box. This box is so much power. And this box versus all the other presentation switches that are out there is head and shoulders above all that. On top of that, I know we're going to talk about it. Not only does this box do all this color, it's 8K capable. It's got a ton of layers. It also has Dante audio. Now, Dante audio is a networking audio protocol. So one of the things that works for us is if I plug in a graphics machine, media server that has Dante, the second I plug it in, audio shows up here. Now, one cool thing is we're video guys. We're not touching audio. we hand that power over to our audio team, and they're able to grab and manipulate the audio. And I know this is a color show, but I just want to show the power of this box and why we use it. They can route us the mixes that are coming in. I was telling you about if we have a multi-language broadcast, French, English, and Spanish, they can actually route those things out of the SDI into record decks. And then on top of that, we can put those 3D LUTs in there so that they're mapped. So if we're doing a wide color gamut show, not only do we have the audio, we're correcting color at the same time in the same box, and then we can actually, if we're tone mapping outside to a 709 show or sRGB show, we can tone map that so it's recorded in 709, or we can also record in wide gamut. So awesome. I mean, so much stuff going on in the box, so right?
Yeah, you could have an amazing live show, and everything is going to be mapped to sRGB or 709.
Or 709,
for a legal broadcast,
exactly,
for the live broadcast. That's fantastic.
And in the show, we'll have a wide color gamut, so that the wall might be a P3.
Yes.
And then on top of that, well, we have pips that have picture-in-picture cameras that are coming in at Rec 709. If I showed that camera in a P3 display, everybody would look sunburned. So you're putting too much color out. But with this box, because I can do a 3D LUT on the input of that, now I can map 2 different color spaces inside the same show. It's incredible.
That's super cool.
Look, when a color nerd like me gets happy, you know it's a good thing. So
yeah, if you want to learn more about Analog Way, just check out the description below. We have links there, and you can learn much more about the hardware and what it can do.
Yep.
Excellent. This is the big guy.
Yeah.
Right. But we also have a little cute little guy there, AGA.
That's right.
Which is called the color box. We had already, and you don't maybe want to miss it for the audience. We have a great tutorial video with our senior PM of Calman, David Abrams, about how to use AGA. But you guys are using it in a different environment. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about this little fellow.
Gotcha. So the AGA color box is a powerhouse in a very small package. And the last 709 reasons with this color box shows you the power of it. But in our realm, what we're using it for is to extend the color power of many different devices. It could be computer input devices, but the one thing we use it for is to color match cameras together. And this thing gives you the power. It's got that 7-LUT pipeline inside of it. It's got color front. It's got Orion. It's got all these different things. And on top of that, it's super fast. Now, Tim Walker, from AJA made sure that
greetings to Tim.
Greetings to Tim. He made sure to say that it's half a line of delay, so one line total, one line total in and out, because production switchers need that kind of low latency. And you have to check out this box for anything, just the amount of power that you get in their interface, and also you can set presets. Calman talks directly to it. It saves 1D and 3D LUTs in the preset. So watch that special, that 709 reasons, because you'll learn so much about this box. But okay, so in the way we use it, sometimes we have $100,000 cameras, Sony 3500s, Panasonic UV4000s, those kind of things. And those things have matrix and color handles all day long. But sometimes you might pair that with a camera that only has RGB settings, like 1D LUT RGB. If I attach that in the color pipeline, if I attach the color box in the color pipeline, now I have a camera that maybe for under $5,000, the LUT box plus the camera can keep up with those $100,000 cameras. And that's a use case that Tim and I were talking about. He's very excited to let the world know, because just by adding this box, now you have that other capability. But then that's just one use case out of dozens and dozens of use cases.
Right, so, and I think that's what makes the color box so powerful.
Absolutely.
With an amazing price point.
Yeah.
For what it can do, actually.
Right, and I just want to say, I mean, I've been using AJA for 15 years, probably longer, and those guys, what all these companies that I highlighted here, what they have is, gear is just gear. You know what makes a company great is people, like with you guys, like, you know, Joe Boslett, you know, Josh Palmer, you, David Abrams, Catherine, everybody else. Like, the thing is, like, I can call and know that I have a support team behind you. And here at Analog Way, I have Eric Iverson. You know, I have Carl Hood. Over here, I mentioned the people before. You have Tim over here. And then just the thing is, you're going to have not only legacy support, you have forward-facing support, and in the future, you're going to know that you have help. And so that's the reason I pick these companies, because it's very important in the live field. At 3 in the morning, I can pick up a phone and call somebody, and there's support there.
And I think that's the difference also with this world, right? It's an entirely different world, and you guys are setting up something for a big show. Whoever's star comes maybe on stage.
Yes.
And there's no time to wait.
Right.
I mean, literally, downtime means you're basically dead in the water.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And let's say you have let's say you have a superstar who's making $500,000 a day.
Yeah.
And every minute, you know, it's costing you thousands of dollars. You got to make sure everything's working. So that's why we always have gear that's just, it's almost like, you know, like airplane gear. It's got to work, you know? So.
No, that's awesome. We talked about all of those, but then there's one more component.
That's right.
And it's a software component, and it's called Omniscope.
Omniscope from Nobi.
What would I need that for?
Okay, so what I love about that system is, Time in Pixels is the company. Nobi is the actual line brand of the actual software. Omniscope is that final piece. And it's, first of all, I want to say it's Mac and PC compatible, which is huge, because some of the applications we have only run on one platform, but this allows everybody to have it. Now, one thing is, in our camera shading rack, usually have a Tektronix Prism vector scope that's probably about $25,000, right? Well, not all of us techs can afford that. So the cool thing about the Nobi Omniscope is that it gives you about 19 different scopes, audio monitoring, it gives you 3D cube manipulation of seeing the signal, it gives you gamut, it gives you vector and waveform scopes of all kinds. And the cool thing about that is, the reason I use that is because once I render that 3D LUT, I can actually see it in action on Omniscope. When I apply that LUT, I can either apply it in the actual scope, or after I apply it through the RS4, I can actually see it in the scope, what it's doing to the signal. And it's something I can carry. It's portable, you know. And if I have one of those AJA IO 4K pluses or Kuna cards, then I can have an actual live input, but it also does NDI inputs. And the other thing is you can actually monitor video files. You can do PNGs, for example, like our Calman family, which I always talk about. I can put it in there and then actually look at the difference between what it looks like without a technology and what it looks like through a camera. And so that's why OmniScope's incredible for us.
That's pretty cool. So basically what you can do is you use it as a monitoring tool, but you also can use it as a QC tool.
Absolutely.
Because if something looks funny and you know it's not my system I built for
Exactly.
you guys, it's your file, right?
Exactly.
So you basically can go both ways. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
And there are hundreds of tutorials on how to use OmniScope, but the way we use it in live production, there's also a thing called masks, which you can, if I'm taking an image of you and I just want to focus on your skin tone, I can actually, with my mouse, I can just draw a mask around your skin tones and then see exactly how that's showing up on the scope. And then I can actually tweak my matrix in the camera to that. So there's so many different modes, but that's one of the main modes we use.
Tracking then?
Yeah, it's tracking that color. And then also that 3D cube allows me to see what's going on. And then we'll show that later.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So now we have all those components. We have the software, we have the hardware. Tell us about your Calman trainings. You just had recently one at your facility. How is the curriculum put together? What your gals and guys are learning there?
You got it. So the training classes just happened at Alfred Media. They're out of Dallas, and they're a staging company. Basically, when a production company comes in and has all these people we're talking about, we want to project a show. We want to have content on. They have project managers that have gear. They set up everything. They do all the drawings, all the technical stuff. They have all the engineers to put that show together. So that's what Alfred Media is, and they're always focused on the top end color. We have projectionists there, Jimmy Palisota, who's an avid user of Calman. He and Daryl Bernard, who's the head of video, came to me and said, we want to have a class for all our technicians, LED technicians, even project managers. And this is very important that they thought about this whole methodology of, like I was telling you, it's not just the one person, it's the entire group that makes the show. And we went, they came out, we set up stations with Brompton processors, and they were calibrating everything from monitors to the small Atomos show guns, which allow for LUTs. We put LUTs inside of the RS4. We put LUTs in here. So
and you have the LED tiles too.
LED tiles
to
too.
learn how to do that part.
And I sent you guys videos and pictures, and you guys can show what's happening. These classes are great. It's about a 3-day class, and we start out from the basics of Calman all the way to generating LUTs and how to manage all the processing and everything else to get the best color for your show. Now, one other thing we teach there is how we start talking to the content houses. And then one thing that Eric Hackstrom, who's one of the project managers, told me, even though I technically didn't learn about the color, because that's not what he does, he learned the methods of how to get color all the way through, asking for style guides, seeing what colors we need for when we put in the 3 LUT, if I do beyond a lightning LUT. We'll talk about lightning LUTs later and more, timed LUTs versus point LUTs. How we can get those LUTs to achieve color at a higher level. Awesome. So that's very, very, the classes just go really in depth. I want to start teaching these colorists. I can't color every screen, and that's fine, but I want to make sure that I evangelize the whole Calman product and to let them know that the 3D LUT in there is incredible, and all the tools that Calman comes with, the suite, are what you need exactly to have your show look at its best.
Again, we will also have more information about your training curriculums in the description. Check it out. And there's also a link to Angel's website. So everything, all that information will be at hand.
Yep.
Angel, thank you very much. It was, again, amazing having a special guest like you at the show. I think this is the biggest show with the biggest guns we ever had so far. Check out the tutorials. 2 of them, Brompton tutorial and Analog Way tutorial, very important. And of course, we will see Angel, I'm sure, in one of the training sessions and also in some of the future videos. Thanks for being with us this time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I'm hoping to see the next gen stuff coming out, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Check out the links below, and we'll see you on the next show.